He cupped an ear toward the wagon and nudged me with his elbow. "I can hear everything you say," my mother called sweetly from inside. My father grinned and winked at me. "So what play are we going to do?" I asked my father. "Nothing vulgar, mind you. They're God-fearing folk in these parts." He looked at me. "What would you pick?" I gave it a long moment's thought. "I'd play something from the Brightfield cycle, The Forging of the Path, or some such." My father made a face. "Not a very good play." I shrugged. "They won't know the difference. Besides, it's chock full of telu, so no one will complain about it being vulgar." I looked up at the sky. "I just hope it doesn't rain on us halfway through." My father looked up at the clouds. "It will. Still, there are worse things than playing in the rain." "Like playing in the rain and getting shimmed on the deal?" I asked. The mayor hurried up to us, moving at a fast walk. There was a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead, and he was puffing a little bit, as if he'd been running. I talked it over with a few members of the council, and we decided that it would be quite all right for you to use the public house if you would care to. My father's body language was perfect. It was perfectly clear he was offended, but was far too polite to say anything. "I certainly wouldn't want to put you out." No bother at all. I insist, in fact." "Very well, if you insist." The mayor smiled and hurried away. "Well, that's a little better," my father sighed. "No need to tighten our belts yet." "Halfpenny a head. That's right. Anyone without a head gets in free. Thank you, sir." Tripp was working the door, making sure everyone paid to see the play. "Halfpenny a head, though by the rosy glow on your lady's cheeks I should be charging you for a head and a half. Not that it's any of my business, mind you." Tripp had the quickest tongue of anyone in the troupe, which made him the best man for the job of making sure no one tried to fast-talk or bully their way inside. Wearing his green and gray gestures motley, Tripp could say just about anything and get away with it. "Hello, Mum, no charge for the little one, but if he starts to squawk you'd best give him the tit quick, or take him outside." Tripp carried on his unending patter. "That's right, halfpenny. Yes, sir, empty head still pays full price." There was always fun to watch Tripp work. Most of my attention was on a wagon that had rolled into the other end of town about a quarter hour ago. The mayor had argued with the old man driving it, then stormed off. Now I saw the mayor heading back to the wagon, accompanied by a tall fellow carrying a long cudgel, the constable, unless I missed my guess. My curiosity got the best of me as I made my way toward the wagon, doing my best to stay out of sight. The mayor and the old man were arguing again by the time I got close enough to hear. The constable stood nearby, looking irritated and anxious. "Told you, I don't have a license. I don't need a license. Does a peddler need a license? Does a tinker need a license?" "You're not a tinker," the mayor said. "Don't try to pass yourself off as one." "I'm not trying to pass myself off as anything," the old man snapped. "I'm a tinkler and a peddler, and I'm more than both. I'm an arcanist, you great dithering heap of idiot." "My point exactly," the mayor said doggedly. "We're God-fearing people in these parts. We don't want any meddling with dark things better left alone. We don't want the trouble your kind can bring." "My kind?" the old man said. "What do you know about my kind? There probably hasn't been an arcanist through these parts in 50 years. We like it that way. Just turn around and go back the way you came." "Like hell if I'm spending the night in the rain because of your thick head," the old man said hotly. "I don't need your permission to rent a room or do business in the street. Now get away or I'll show you firsthand what sort of trouble my kind can be." Fear flashed across the mayor's face before it was overwhelmed by outrage. He gestured over one shoulder at the constable. "Then you'll spend the night in jail for vagrancy and threatening behavior. We'll let you on your way in the morning if you've learned to keep a civil tongue in your head." The constable advanced on the wagon, his cudgel held cautiously at his side. The old man stood his ground and raised one hand. A deep red light welled up from the front corners of his wagon. "That's far enough," he said ominously. "Things could get ugly otherwise." After a moment's surprise, I realized the strange light came from a pair of sympathy lamps the old man had mounted on his wagon. I had seen one before, in Lord Greyfellow's library. They were brighter than gaslight, steadier than candles or lamps, and lasted nearly forever. They were also terribly expensive. I was willing to bet that no one in this little town had ever heard of them, let alone seen one. The constable stopped in his tracks when the light began to swell, but when nothing else seemed to happen, he set his jaw and kept walking toward the wagon. The old man's expression grew anxious. "Now hold on a moment," he said as the red light from the wagon started to fade. "We don't want—" "Shut your clapper, you old shitfire," the constable said. He snatched the arcanist's arm as if he were sticking his hand into an oven. Then, when nothing happened, he smiled and grew more confident. "Don't think I won't knock you a good one to keep you from working any more of your devilry." Well done, Tom, the mayor said, radiating relief. Bring him along and we'll send someone back for the wagon. The constable grinned and twisted the old man's arm. The arcanist bent to the waist and gasped a short, painful breath. From where I hid, I saw the arcanist's face change from anxious to pained to angry all in a second. I saw his mouth move. A furious gust of wind came out of nowhere, as if a storm had suddenly burst with no warning. The wind struck the old man's wagon, and it tipped onto 2 wheels before slamming back down onto 4. The constable staggered and fell as if he had been struck by the hand of God. Even where I hid, nearly 30 feet away, the wind was so strong that I was forced to take a step forward, as if I'd been pushed roughly from behind. "Begone!" the old man shouted angrily. "Trouble me no longer. I will set fire to your blood and fill you with a fear like ice and iron." There was something familiar about his words, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Both the mayor and the constable turned tail and ran, their eyes white and wild as startled horses. The wind faded as quickly as it had come. The whole sudden burst couldn't have lasted more than 5 seconds. As most of the townsfolk were gathered around the public house, I doubted anyone had seen it except for me, the mayor, the constable, and the old man's donkeys, who stood placidly in their harness, utterly unperturbed. "Leave this place clean of your foul presence," the arcanist muttered to himself as he watched them go. "By the power of my name, I command it to be so." I finally realized why his words seemed so familiar. He was quoting a line from the exorcism scene in Dianica. Not many folk knew that play. The old man turned back to his wagon and began to extemporize. "I'll turn you into butter on a summer day. I'll turn you into a poet with the soul of a priest. I'll fill you with lemon custard and push you out a window." He spat. "Bastards." His irritation seemed to leave him, and he heaved a great weary sigh. "Well, that couldn't have gone much worse," the old man muttered as he rubbed at the shoulder of the arm the constable had twisted. "Do you think they'll come back with a mob behind them?" For a second I thought the old man was talking to me. Then I realized the truth. He was talking to his donkeys. "I don't think so either," he said to them, "but I've been wrong before. Let's stay near the edge of town and have a look at the last of the oats, shall we?" He clambered up into the back of the wagon and came down with a wide bucket and a nearly empty burlap sack. He upended the sack into the bucket and seemed disheartened by the results. He took out a handful for himself before nudging the buckets toward the donkeys with his foot. "Don't give me that look," he said to them. "It's short rations all around. Besides, you can graze." He petted one donkey while he ate his handful of rough oats, stopping occasionally to spit out a husk. It struck me as very sad, this old man all alone on the road with no one to talk to but his donkeys. It's hard for us, Edema Rue, but at least we had one another. This man had no one. "We've wandered too far from civilization, boys. The folk that need me don't trust me, and the ones that trust me can't afford me." The old man peered into his purse. "We've got a penny and a half, so our options are limited. Do we want to be wet tonight or hungry tomorrow? We're not going to do any business, so it will probably be one or the other." I slunk around the edge of the building until I could see what was written on the side of the old man's wagon. It read, "Abinthy, Arcanist Extraordinary. Scribe, Dowser, Chemist, Dentist. Rare goods, all elements tended. Lost items found, anything mended. No horoscopes, no love potions, no malefaction." Abinthy noticed me as soon as I stepped out from behind the building where I'd been hiding. "Hello there, can I help you?" "You've misspelled ailments," I pointed out. He looked surprised. "It's a joke, actually," he explained. "I brew a bit." "Oh, ale," I said, nodding. "I get it." I brought my hand out of my pocket. "Can you sell me anything for a penny?" He seemed struck between amusement and curiosity. "What are you looking for?" "I'd like some Laocoon." We had performed Fairy in the Fair a dozen times in the last month, and it had filled my young mind with intrigue and assassination. "Are you expecting someone to poison you?" he said, somewhat taken aback. "Not really, but it seems to me that if you wait around until you know you need an antidote, it's probably too late to pick one up." "I suppose I could sell you a penny's worth," he said. "That would be about a dose for a person your size. But it's dangerous stuff in its own right. It only cures certain poisons. You can hurt yourself if you take it at the wrong time." "Oh," I said, "I didn't know that. In the play it was treated as an infallible cure-all." Abinthy tapped his lips thoughtfully. "Can you answer me a question in the meantime?" I nodded. "Whose troop is that?" "In a way it's mine," I said, "but in another way it's my father's, because he runs the show and points which way the wagons go. But it's Baron Greyfellow's, too, because he's our patron. We're Lord Greyfellow's men." The old man gave me an amused look. I've heard